Committee. I need to read you this before we start. This meeting has been held remotely and also in person and will be filmed and recorded for live and subsequent broadcasts available through the Council's website. The Council is a data controller under the General Data Protection Regulations and the Data Protection Act 2018. We broadcast and record Council meetings to fulfil our public task obligation to enable members of the public to observe the democratic process. That was just the Daily Express. We broadcast and record Council meetings to fulfil our public task obligation to enable members of the public to observe the democratic process. Data collected during the process will be retained in accordance with Council published policies available through the Council website. Members of the Council are reminded they should follow the Council's established meeting protocols, including around the use of the chat facility, and that comments made in the chat facility are visible to all participants in the meeting, which may include members of the public who have also received invites to the meeting. Thank you, everybody. Lindsay, would you like to do a roll call this week?
We have apologies from Councillor Maguire and Councillor Nelson. And then move to a roll call. Following members, please indicate if they are present at the meeting either in person or remotely. Councillor Crowther.
Present in chamber.
Councillor Curley.
Present in chamber.
Councillor McCabe.
Present remotely.
Councillor McCluskey. Councillor McCormick.
Present remotely.
Councillor McVeigh.
Chamber.
Councillor Reynolds.
Present remotely.
Councillor Robertson.
Present in chamber.
Councillor Wilson.
Present in the chamber.
Are there any declarations of interest?
Thank you, Lindsay. Before we move on, I'd like to welcome Francis Scott from Glasgow City Council, who has been helping us out in the absence of Andy. Welcome, Francis, to this official meeting. We move on to performance management. Agenda item number 2, internal audit progress report, 31st of March to 30th of June 24. And the report is in the hands of Francis. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for the welcome. I'll take you through the reports we've got today. If I'm not within the house cell, we'll be Alan from the room. I'll try and answer them.
Chair, we're struggling a wee bit to hear Francis.
Okay, so speak up a bit. Is that better?
Yeah, it's a bit better. Thank you.
So this is the first report today, is the standard update report, and we will give an update on recent audit reports that we've issued since the last committee. Also the update on the actions that we've undertaken, and and also looking at the audit plan for the year and the progress with that. So Brian's happy, I'll just take you through the first part of this report in Appendix 1. And the first part of this report is fairly standard, just gives the overall opinions that we provide with the audit reports and the priority of the recommendations. That's standard, I'm sure you're familiar with that. Within the last period, we've issued 2 audit reports finalised. The first one of those is on succession planning. And we conducted this audit between March and May this year. So this was looking at the arrangements around succession planning within the council and looking at the controls in place and just making sure they were effective and operating as intended. The overall control environment for this audit was satisfactory. So in terms of good practice, we found lots of positive aspects. Succession plan arrangements were in place within the council and guidance has been issued to management. And it's part of an ongoing process, which is important, especially in the current climate. There were some control issues identified from the audit testing. And the first one of those was that some services did not have a formal succession plan and document in place. This was required by the guidance that had been issued to all services. The second point there was that for some of the services that did have a succession plan and document, these had not been reviewed, or for the effectiveness hadn't been reviewed. And the last point was that some managers that we asked for information and said that they felt further training could be provided on the process and on the guidance notes. We've issued 3 amber findings for this audit and an action plan is in place to deliver them by March 2025. The second report issued was on building standards, and again this was looking at the controls and procedures around building standards and the arrangements in place for that. With this one, the overall control environment was satisfactory. Again, lots of good practice noted within the report. Procedural documentation is in place. Key performance outcomes and monitoring fee income is there as well. Building standards is quite a highly regulated and proceduralised area, so it's quite a good area to audit, and we've got assurance that these were in place and working effectively. There were 5 green findings coming from that report, and an action plan is in place to implement these. It says in the report 30th of June, it's actually 31st of October. And a small update on that, most of the actions have been, we've advised they've been complete at the moment. They'll be reported as part of the follow-up process at the next committee. So I'll pause there, Chair, at that point and take any questions.
Any questions? Councillor Robertson?
Thanks very much, Kira. Just bearing in mind what you're saying there, Francis, about the building standards side of the business being highly regulated in any case. I'm wondering why we were satisfactory and why we're not just wrong, if there's a kind of quite strict deadlines around or parameters around how building standards is done and what we can do to get a strong professional audit was.
Well, it was a satisfactory. It was a satisfactory opinion on that one. The recommendation for the green was the lower priority, so we're fairly comfortable with the arrangements that were in place within that. And I say it's regulated anyway, which means it's a good area to audit because there's certain processes and procedures that have to be followed. So I said that was a positive report, and we were comfortable with what was in place for that one.
Councillor McCluskey?
Thank you, Convener. Just a quick
Councillor,
one on...
just before you start, it was remiss of me not to congratulate you on your election to the United Kingdom Parliament. Well done.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Just on succession planning, just a question there. The 3 amber findings, really, this is obviously an area that has concerned us for a while, just around the number of kind of single person dependencies that exist in the council. So would you be able just to kind of tease out a little bit exactly what the amber findings were, if they're just simply the 3 bullet points, or if there's more there, and in terms of the action plan going forward, what you'll be looking to do? Thank you.
Did you get that, Francis?
Yes, I think so. The 3 findings are based on the bullet points that are in the report. I think they were given amber findings. Generally, if you look at those bullet points, they don't maybe tend to look like more serious aspects of it, but I think given the fact that succession planning is such a key part of the council's operation at the moment, we're saying that the processes are in place, but these 3 points here would just fully strengthen the process and enhance what's already there.
Okay, Martin?
Yes, thank you.
From a CMT perspective as well, succession planning has appeared in the annual governance statement. It was in the draft accounts, and as a result, it's on the action plan of all directorates and services to progress this. And the head of HR, Mona, they issued guidance and templates earlier this week for all services to complete. So CMT are very much aware of it. It's a council-wide requirement to make sure these plans are in place, and they'll be getting progressed with a deadline at the end of December, which is 3 months earlier, I think, than the deadline in the audit committee papers.
Thank you, Alan. Councillor McCabe?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I was going to come in on that point around succession planning. I've very much welcomed the assurance that's been given by Alan there. This is in a very important area of council, and we need to ensure that we are addressing it. It's no point in just having policies and procedures if they're not being implemented. So I welcome the assurance that's been given that the CMT will be ensuring progress in this area over the coming months.
Okay, any other questions? I have one question. I see we've got Stuart Jimison with us. My question is around the audit on building standards. The review was satisfactory, which is good in a way because we've had a fairly traumatic 5 years in building standards. When would you anticipate, along with Mr. McIlvenny, getting this to the next level above satisfactory? Stuart?
Through you, clearly the internal audit has looked at processes identified within the terms of the audit. But building standards, as the interim chief internal auditor has indicated, is highly regulated. And when you look at the annual performance reports that we have within building standards, they all are doing well. So I don't think in terms of remedial action, there's anything that we're required to do other than the things that are identified within our annual return to the Building Standards Division in terms of our performance. Clearly, the internal audit function is looking at the processes internally. I mean, one of the outstanding points, for example, is what happens in a blackout. So these matters are being dealt with through engagement with the Civil Contingency Service, and clearly we hope to have all of the matters concluded in the next fortnight with regards to the internal audit actions.
Thank you, Stuart. Any other questions, colleagues? Don't see anything on the screen, nothing in the room. Are we happy to agree that report?
Great.
Thank you.
Convener, would you like the rest of the appendices? I think Francis was going to go through those.
Right.
I'll just go through the rest of the.
Just go through them all at once.
Well, is somebody doing appendix 1 and somebody doing appendix 2? Both Francis. Okay, Francis.
I'll take you through them all, Chair. Okay, so Appendix 1, that gives you the update on the 23-24 audit plan. Now, just as is the case with these things, these tend to drag over into the new financial year. So this is just giving a position update on where we are with the old year plan. All the work for the year has either been completed or in some cases there's been audits deferred. And we've got one audit remaining on UK share prosperity fund arrangements, which the report has now been finalised, but it just didn't make the deadline for the reporting requirements for committee, so we'll bring that to the next committee in October. The second page of Appendix 1 provides the update on the current year's audit plan and the audits that are in that plan. And we're now, given some of the delays with the absence in the team, we're now just starting to get those planning underway. So we're slightly behind schedule a bit, but we're working with the team to get the planning documents agreed in the terms of reference issued so we can take them forward with the service managers. Section 5 is an update on the corporate fraud activity. We continue to provide the National Fraud Initiative work, checking the data matches and recording the values of frauds and errors that are found under that. Employee expenses relates to an audit that was carried out last year, and we've had to issue some reminder guidance through HR to the service manager just to make sure the processes around that we recommend are being followed, such as submission of VAT claims and timelessness of claims to make sure they're not hanging on for too long. The Council continues to investigate whistleblowing and other inquiries as a standard, and there's a number of savings there based on council tax discounts and exemptions. And the rest of Section 5 just notes some other savings that have been made through the work that's been done with the fraud team. Appendix 2 provides an update on the status of the internal audit action points that have been made from previous audit reports. So, since the last committee, there were 17 actions that were due for completion. I'm pleased to say that 13 of those actions have been fully implemented, and we've confirmed that by verifying evidence to that effect. That leaves 4 actions which we're not able to mark off as complete within this time period, and Section 4 provides an update on the reasons for that, with some comments from management and also some revised implementation dates. And finally, in Section 5, we give an update on the number of actions over the years and what is outstanding. There's a large number of green actions outstanding. We generally don't report them to committee on a regular basis, but I understand there's a report to the April committee, and having discussed with Alan, we feel that it would be good to have another update in October to have a refreshed position on that and provide an update on how we're doing with the green recommendations. I'm happy to pause there, Chair, and take any questions on that.
Councillor Curley.
Thank you, David. Just with respect to page 12, public productivity endemic one, I note there's a value of productivity for constant error of £8,120 with the single person discount. And I'm just wondering if that's the total error, either positive or negative, or it's based on positive and negative effects added together. So in actual fact, it's maybe a larger positive error in our favour and a large negative error in our favour to other people, and we put it together, we get a small overall value. I'm just wondering if officers can confirm that aspect of it.
Sounds quite local. Would you like to answer it?
I can answer generally, Chair. I would say that in most cases that they wouldn't investigate SPD errors of the other way, negative, if you like. We're only going to pick up things where SPD is in payment and it shouldn't be in payment, either due to fraud, deliberate act or error, which can happen as well.
Okay, Chris.
I can confirm that that's the case. What the fraud team and my team look at are cases where somebody's claiming a single person discount. You may not be entitled to a single person discount. So the 68,000 will be both gross and net. It's everything.
Yeah. So it's that sort of asked question, and obviously if people are receiving benefit, etc., and this is where it's come from, how do we catch the other situation where somebody in an error is still paying a two-person because maybe a person's the partner's died or partner moved out and this has not been caught? Is there any way that the system actually catches that sort of error?
Alan?
It wouldn't be a system type thing, obviously, with council tax. It's the vast majority of the onus is on the council taxpayer to keep their records up to date, same with non-domestic rates. If people move house, the circumstances change, same with the voting roll, the onus is on the individual. And in some cases, in many cases, it's genuine oversight where folk don't keep us informed, whether it's a positive thing or a negative thing. But unfortunately, in some cases, a small number of people who try to take advantage of the situation as well. And that's what the folk in internal audit working with my team are looking for.
Thank you.
Okay, Chris.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Nothing in the chamber and nothing online. In that case, we again have to agree agenda item number 2, internal audit progress report, 31st of March to 30th of June.
Great.
All right, thank you. Is that taking too long to get to that? Impatient leader. Agenda item number 3, external audit action plans and current actions. Francis.
Thanks, Chair. So this is the standard report we bring to committee detailing the progress on the actions from external audit. Again, this is a fairly positive report. There was 6 actions due for completion since the last committee and all have been satisfactorily implemented. So I wouldn't intend to take you through the details of that. I would say that there's 4 actions still to be complete, but those have due dates that are in the future so that they've not passed yet. So again, all the actions that were due for completion by this month have been completed.
Thank you, Francis. Any questions, colleagues? Don't see anything online. I see heads just nodding and nobody in the room. In that case, are we happy to agree agenda item number 3, external audit action plans and current actions? Happy to agree?
Great.
Thank you. Thank you, colleagues. We have under new business, agenda item number 4, internal audit, external quality assessment. Francis.
Thank you, Chair. This is a report that should come to committee probably every 5 years. All the public sector audit teams are bound by the public sector internal audit standard, they're mandatory. And it's just a set of standards to try and bring consistency and coherence to the work that's done throughout the country. And they're based on global standards set by the Institute of Internal Auditors. So to demonstrate conformance to the standards, the audit teams have have to carry out an annual self-assessment process against them, looking for ensuring compliance. And on a 5-yearly basis, they're required to have an external quality assessment undertaken by an independent assessor. So to assist with this process, the Scottish Local Authorities Chief Internal Auditors Group have set up a peer review where councils will select other councils and carry out that work on a no-fee basis. And of course, that saves councils having to go to private firms and having to pay to get it done, which can be quite expensive. And on this occasion, it was Renfrewshire Council that were selected to carry out the assessment of Inverclyde Council. So the conclusion of this report is really positive. The Inverclyde Council's audit service fully conforms with the standards. There are some areas that I've picked up for improvement, and they would only serve just to further enhance the processes that are in place. So these are around about the independence of the Chief Internal Auditor, and it's not about maybe the physical independence, but more just noting the independence and recognising the role. The Audit Committee needs to have some clarity about the resources. I think when the annual plans are put to the committee, it doesn't include the time of the Chief Auditor within that, and that was, again, it's a small point that's been picked up, but it's probably relevant to take forward. And some recommendations around the document retention policy to make some specific areas for internal audit work. So I've included a copy of the action plan within the back of the report just to show you some of the areas that have been picked up. In most cases, the recommendation can be met by making some changes to the audit charter document. That's a document that comes to committee on a 5-yearly basis and just sets out the role and function of internal audit and the responsibilities behind that. So I think we can make a few changes to the wording of that document, and that would meet much of the recommendations. And then there's a few other small changes there that there's nothing of any concern. And as I say, the main message from this report is that there's full conformance has been awarded to the team. So I've spoken to Alan and Louise about taking that forward. Out with this action plan, I've actually recommended that the charter document comes to committee on an annual basis rather than a 5-yearly basis. There's a few changes to come out of this. The standards are going to be revised next year, and there'll be a new code of practice coming out which will affect the charter document, and there'll also be a mandate document which will be added to that. So I think for committee's visibility of just how internal audit works, it'd be good to bring it to committee on an annual basis rather than every 5 years. So the action plan's in place. By the end of the financial year, the action should be complete, and we can take that forward from there.
Thank you, Francis. Just before we move on, I'd like to thank Lindsay and the committee section for using colour in our reports for arrows and where it's necessary. Makes it so much easier to read what we're doing. Thank you, Lindsay. Agenda item number 4, do we have any questions? No? Oh, Councillor Robertson.
More a comment than a question, I suppose. What we put on record that it's really good that we're fully compliant with the standard. You know, the things that are minor are clearly going to be picked up, and none of them are tremendously significant. So I know we run a small team who are involved in all of this, and for it to be fully compliant, I think is of note, and we should applaud them.
Right. Alan, want to answer that in any way?
No, I think it's a credit to Andy and the team and the work of the audit committee.
Thank you for that.
Chair, if I could just come in there as well, that I think the standards have been out for 10 years now, and I think with an annual self-assessment and a 5-yearly external assessment, you would expect that councils would be fully compliant, but they're not. So I think it is a positive point that Andy's team have got that accreditation through the assessment, because we know of plenty of councils who have got a lot of actions to put forward, and we do external assessments for other councils as well, and they're not all as positive as this, so I think it's good to recognise that.
That's good to hear. I don't see anything on the screen, nothing in the room. Ms. Winks, you want to?
No.
I thought you were reaching for your button. Right, okay. With agenda item number 4, we're asked at 2.1, it is recommended the committee notes the summary of the external audit quality assessment and an action plan to address the matters raised by 31st of March 25 has been developed by officers. Are we happy to support that recommendation? Thank you. That concludes the meeting. Thank you very much. Thank you to officers for attending today.